Welcome to It's a Matter of Music, a show that takes you down the roads traveled by creators and artists searching for the doors in and out of the music business. Hosted by songwriter, poet, and storyteller John Gray, and brought to you by It's a Matter of Music Publishing Company, where melodies are wrapped around life. Now, here's John.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Melodies Wrapped Around Life. You know, I'm excited today. Every time I get to talk about music and people who are involved in the music business, it makes me happy because what we try to do with this show is we want to bring to you the folks who are the ones who make the music happen. You know, the stars would not be stars if they didn't have the publishers and the writers and the players that make them sound and look like stars. The other thing is the folks who are I call it the meat and potatoes, the grinders of the music business, and those are the cats in Nashville and the surrounding area and all the little towns where there's clubs and bars where the second tier of music people make a living bringing you the music that the stars record. And those are the people who keep that industry happening. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit with this gentleman who's here. I'm very excited to have him here. He is one of those people who, you know, if you're going to make a beautiful album or put a beautiful song together, where do you start? Well, no melody is really any good without a great back line, and that back line starts with the beat. Can everybody do that? There's a whole lot of people that try, but when you are the best at bringing the beat to a melody, the guys who want good stuff know who it is. And there's this beat that they say, who are you going to have on your next album? Well, I'm going and put the brew beat on my album. The brew beat, what is the brew beat? That's the beat that you get when you go to a professional by the name of Steve Brewster from Tullahoma, Tennessee, now one of the best call names in the music industry as a drummer and a backline guy. And he's here on the show with me today, Mr. Steve Brewster.
Honored to be here.
Tullahoma kid.
Thank you, John. I don't know if I can live up to everything you just said, but it's a privilege to be here with you. I have a reverence for your family and the town of Tullahoma, you know, and it's just so special. It's a real treat to be here.
Well, you know, and I'm really glad because Steve and I have been friends through the years, like you say, because you were born and raised here.
Yeah.
And we shared experiences at the same church, and so we've known each other for a long time. But the thing about Steve is his journey, and the journey that a lot of people take into the music industry is something that can never be completed because there's only so many stars. You know, Steve was fortunate enough to do some work yesterday on a project with Dolly Parton, and Steve was saying there's very few real stars.
Absolutely.
And Dolly Parton is one of those few.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and what constitutes a star, I don't know, but to me, you know, we're not even necessarily talking about music here, but that just happens to be my area of experience, you know. There's great singers, there's beautiful people, there's people who are great writers of lyric, there's people who are great writers of the music side of their projects, and then there's people who just have a deep level of humanity, and the list could go on and on and on. You understand my
Dolly's
point.
There.
It's one of the very few that kind of, to me, it's like those stars, they kind of transcend all of those elements, and they go into another realm of impact. and what they do for the world. And who doesn't love Dolly Parton? I don't care what side of the fence you're on.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference. She even had to record a rock and roll song because they put her in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, that record's probably going to win,
sure,
many awards.
Sure.
And that's who I was working for yesterday, is the guy who produced that.
Right. Well, so what we want to do is make you realize that for every Dolly and Kenny and different ones, there's hundreds of people at this level below that create this magic for them that allows them to stand in front of the microphone and sing or act or do what they do.
Yeah.
And my friend and our guest today, Steve Brewster, is one of those few who is at the top of the heap, folks. I guarantee you that. What we're going to do right now is take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back, and Steve is going to tell us about his journey in the music industry. We'll be right back.
Awesome.
Senior Living, active, independent senior living at its finest.
We teach Parkinson's patients how to move big and not let the Parkinson's slow them down. I've had patients I've treated in-house that could not even stand up, could not roll over in the bed, left the facility walking with a walker, have come back to us in outpatient and continued their big program and are now completely handling life. The success of the program is just phenomenal.
Let us champion your recovery. Life Care Center of Tullahoma.
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Melodies Wrapped Around Life, and today's guest is the Brew Beat. And that means this cat is one bad boy on a set of drums. Mr. Steve Brewster, and Tullahoma boy, and what he's going to do now is we're just going to start off, what turned you on to thinking you might even want to end up where you are right now? Music, how did you just fall in love with music?
Yeah, that's a interesting question, and not to sound cliche, but the truth really is, it kind of found me. I was a bit of a, what in today's terms might be categorized as hyperactive child, but I think my mom needed something where I could sit down for more than 1 minute and do something constructive.
Right.
And so, really, I wish I could answer that question, but really, in a beautiful way, there really is no definitive answer to that question. I just know that music made me feel different than it made my buddies feel. My buddies on the Little League team, my buddies in the youth group, my friends that I hung with, they all loved music on a different level than I did. And I kind of inside felt music deeper, in a deeper way, which as a young kid, you don't know how to process that really.
Right.
It was just beautiful to me.
Right.
So, my mom saw early on, saw me, putting together cardboard boxes and pencil boxes and pots and pans and arranging them around me and using pencils and just beating on them before I even knew what a drum set was or anything. So I was drawn, I was just, it's just in my DNA. I was naturally drawn to the sound of music. It took me to a place inside of my soul that I didn't know. Again, I didn't know how to define that, but I just knew. In fact, I wasn't even sure. Is it okay, the way I feel about music? As a young kid, and then I had a great. I want to mention a couple of teachers that I had, particularly in high school. Brian Guess, when I was in high school, he was one who he would physically show his emotions about how the music made him feel, particularly in jazz band. He was really into jazz, and we had an award-winning jazz band.
And Brian, by the way, was a horn player.
He was a trumpet player, yeah. But I can remember times during just a plain old everyday Tullahoma High School jazz band in the band room rehearsal, when we were cooking, he would start crying because he was so overcome with emotion about the power of the music. And that showed me, in a way, not just that, but just the way he talked about music and the way he taught, it just showed me that, it validated the way that I felt. Oh, okay, so I'm not like some cuckoo that feels this certain depth about music. This is okay, and so, man, one of my musical heroes, Brian Guess, another musical Tullahoma hero, and it's very significant. This kind of happened in a, roundabout way, but Ann Baldwin, and we all know she's a Tullahoma, hero.
It's for sure.
Well, at one point she asked me if I would play with the THS singers, and that was kind of like the elite. Yes. It wasn't the chorus or the advanced chorus. It was like this special hand-picked audition group. Right. And they would sing more advanced kind of jazzy things or Broadway type music, and she needed a beat, So she asked me to, would you rehearse with us and go play this concert or whatever? And I started doing that, and then I think she really saw in me something, and so she said, "Okay, I want you to sign up for the class." For the THS, because it was an actual like 5th period or whatever class. I want you to be in there all year round, and so half of the year we're the THS singers, where we do our little jazzy kind of stuff where you would be playing drums, but the other half of the year I don't know what I'm going to do with you, because we go into more legit kind of classical choral kind of music.
She knew what she was going to do.
She absolutely knew what well, I actually sang. She had me sitting there singing with all these guys that were great singers. Well, what she taught me when I first started doing it was how to accompany a vocalist and get past the drum set and get past the physicality of what you're playing, Steve, is good, but you need to support these singers and not step over them and not overshadow them, because it becomes more powerful. Your instrument becomes more powerful when you're supporting and lifting up and elevating the song or the singer or whatever the context is. As an instrumentalist, it's so easy to overpower a vocalist, as a drummer especially, because it's a very intense, physical, loud instrument. So anyway, but those two, she taught me that. She taught me how to simmer down. Now you're doing it. Now you're right with the singer, and you're at the right volume, and you're really accenting in the right. She just taught me all those things, and I do have a history in instrumental music and jazz, and I have a real love for that. But where I've made my mark as a musician is in commercial music, playing behind vocalists. So thank you, Ann Baldwin.
And
and Brian Guess.
Knowing you as an adult and being a friend to you, I can't imagine you as being anything else but a drummer.
Yeah.
Because the way you think and the way you express yourself, and his heart's big as Dolly's. The back line, your instrument is the foundation of everything that's up above it. The lead player, the horn player, the harp player, the singer. Without that constant melodic beat, right tempo, right sound level, none of the rest of it could exist.
Well, it's interesting that you say melodic beat. You're right. And I'm some drummers or drummer first, melody second, and that's one way to go about it. I'm actually, sometimes to a fault, I'm actually melody driven. So I think that's made me effective, with vocalists, with vocal music. Is that I hear a melody and I like to shape my drumming to the contour of that melody and the dynamic of that melody, and that's the whole thing to me is being able to yes, I'm a drummer, but hopefully at some point, I talked about how Dolly kind of transcends, a star kind of transcends in effect their instrument, and that's always been a goal of mine, is like to kind of get past the physicalities of the instrument and paint a picture that transcends the physical part of what I'm doing and goes into onto the canvas of the song and as a part of the color, right, and blends in and actually can help bring a song to life. That's my favorite part. That's still my favorite part of my daily life and what I do as a recording drummer, musician is the actual moment when the red light's on and we're all there and it's time.
Yeah.
Those moments where are the most beautiful moments musically to me. You can have whatever you do to it afterwards. You make it all sound great, and you mix it, and you sell the CDs kind of dating
whatever now.
Yeah, people listen to the music, and it's an important part of it that people are. That's the point, is that people are being moved on some level, either good or bad, by whatever the song is or whatever. But the most beautiful, that's all very, very important to me. But the most important and most exciting and the part I love the most is really the actual moment where we're, the moment where the song is birthed, where it's created.
Right.
And how lucky am I, John, to be one of the guys in the room over and over and over, and in all kinds of genres, to be in the room and to be a witness to that, and to get in the flow of that river,
right,
and be able to ride the wave,
right,
so to speak, of that song, and be a part with all of these. I always felt like most of these people in this room are a lot more talented than me. How did I get in this room? But at the same time,
without you, they can't be in that room.
I've worked very hard. I'm very fortunate, very lucky, and I have a deep sense of gratitude for my career and what I've been involved in. But I've also worked really, really diligently to at my art and my craft.
You know, if you, to me, if you overly hear the drummer, he's not doing his job. And when the drummer, like you say, builds that foundation, and a great drummer, you feel the drums.
Feel is the appropriate word, yeah.
You feel that backbeat. You don't necessarily hear it. Oh, you can hear the clicks and the taps and all that. But what it is you feel that. It is so huge that everything else can stand on top of it.
Yeah, yeah.
How wonderful is it to be the guy who sees the light and hits the first lick?
Yeah, I feel it's an honor and a privilege, and you know, I would say along with that no song is a great song because of one person. No, I should say a recording. No recording is a great recording because of one person. So foundation is a group effort.
Yes.
The foundation of songs. And you're right, you know, the drummer has a lot to do with that.
The drummer, the bass player, and
absolutely. And the engineer, and just every person in the room. So that's one of my favorite parts too about what I get to do. Is it's about I mean, in a very elementary way to say it, it's very it's a team.
Yeah,
it's a team sport.
Yeah, it is.
The quarterback doesn't really win the game.
Not if he's on his back,
if
the foundation falls apart.
If he doesn't have an offensive line, Tennessee Titans. I didn't say that. If he doesn't have an offensive line, then he can't do his job.
No, he can't. He can't.
You know.
Yeah. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back, and we'll travel from Tullahoma, Tennessee, to around the world with Steve Brewster.
Hi, my name is Ringo. Here at Barkview Senior Living, they're human friendly. That's why I love it here, and so does my senior human. When they want a bite, they get chef-prepared meals, and so do I. Movies in the theater, day trips, walks on the trail, and other senior humans to play with. The grass and the grounds are exquisite. It's everything my human needs to be healthy and active. Barkview. Parkview Senior Living. For your dog's best friend, you.
Serving you as a local firefighter. Proudly served our country in the United States Air Force. Serving Tullahoma. Helping our kids.
Hi, I'm Terry Stroop. Your comfort is our service. We'd like to thank Tullahoma for the privilege of serving your heating and cooling needs.
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
All right, folks, we're back, and today I'm very honored to have a Tullahoma boy come back home to spend some time with us on Melodies Wrapped Around Life. One of the premier drummers in Nashville, Tennessee, and probably the United States, probably around the world, Mr. Steve Brewster.
Oh, thank you, John.
You know, Steve, in what you've done, did you ever do much? Let me preface this again by saying one of the things that draws me to Steve, always has and always will, is his love of family. From the time he was a little bitty guy till his married life and his children of his own, some of the decisions that he made were in the favor of family over fortune.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
and I respect him for that very, very much.
Thank you.
He's a very deep thinker and a very faithful man. Did you ever really want to, and take us through a little bit, I know you've played with famous people. Was that something that ever intrigued you enough to want to be a road warrior?
Well, yes and no. So what, being a studio musician, that was always, after I discovered what a studio musician was, that it was a thing, I was like, boom, that's it. Because I started seeing, I had this kind of like love of album rock, love of jazz, love of country, love of singer-songwriter music. I wanted to be in that band, but I wanted to be in that band. I wanted to be in Kansas, but I wanted to play with James Taylor, and I wanted to be in, all of that, those different styles of music spoke to me on different levels and were intriguing to me. So I noticed as a kid, I used to, my older sister Carol used to be a member of the Columbia Record Company, and so every month a new record shows up or whatever, and then my mom and dad had some Herb Alpert records and stuff like that. So I would be lost for hours. I would get done with a couple of hours of listening and all these different kinds of styles, Kiss and the Doobie Brothers and Herb Alpert. How does that relate? Those different things. But
they're all beautiful.
They are, and so and some of these artists, I started. That was back in the day where you look at the album covers or whatever, and I would see, like, wait, this drummer, wait a minute, he's playing on this record, he's playing on this record. How is he in both of those bands? Well, he was a studio musician. Let's just use Steve Gadd, one of my heroes. He's an accomplished jazz musician for iconic Chick Corea, Al Di Meola, the list goes on. But he's also currently, and has been for many years, the drummer with James Taylor. When you go see James Taylor now, you're seeing one of my heroes and one of any drummer's heroes that's alive today, Steve Gadd. Steve Gadd's also the drummer that played on 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover on Paul Simon. So I mean, he's played on. He's also the drummer that played on Ricky Lee Jones' "Chucky's in Love." He's also the drummer. I mean, I could just go on and on.
Yeah.
So once I realized that these guys were just, that's what they did for a living, was they just recorded. They did some touring, but their primary focus was that. So once I latched onto that when I was in late high school, once I discovered that, it was like, that's what I want to do. And there was a target out there called studio musician. It was way off in the distance, right? It's a long shot. It's like how many quarterbacks can the NFL have?
Got 32 teams.
Right. How many kids that are in high school want to be one of those quarterbacks?
32 million.
Yeah, and that's how it is.
Yeah.
But there was a target. Now it's a lot different now. But at least for my story, that's kind of the genesis of what made me want to do that. Studio work, as opposed to being in a famous band and playing that music and going on the road.
Same thing.
Which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Because that's where I derive a lot of my inspiration from. Is from that, right?
Sure.
Is from those bands and things. But for my eclectic taste and my diverse abilities, I'm kind of in a sense, I can do just about most of it, but I'm not the best at any of it. That's the way I see myself. Like I can make it happen.
Yeah.
And I can make pretty much any up to a certain extent. I can make a lot of music genres happen, but I might not be the absolute best at it, but I can make it. And that's what being a studio musician it's part of the job requirement.
Sure.
My most important piece of gear that I take in the studio is my invisible hat rack. It's right here with us right now.
Yeah.
And there's a baseball cap like this on it. There's a backwards baseball cap. There's a bandana, hippie style.
Yeah.
There's a cowboy hat. You get the picture.
Right.
Right.
Oh,
There's a jazz hat.
Yeah.
There's a fedora. And then and that's you get
put
the
that
point.
hat on, and there you go.
Well, also, I take this hat and I take this hat and combine them together, and you get a stew, and you get that's what being a studio musician is to be able to take elements from different places and
turn them into
serve
one thing.
that artist.
Yeah.
So having a wide musical vocabulary is essential for my job. Anyway,
but to me, Steve, that puts you on a level that you say, well, I can't be the best at this or the best at that, but you can take the best of both of them and put them together and create something that doesn't exist.
Absolutely, and that's really...
And that puts you above the best of those.
Yeah, and
in my mind.
Well, I think you're dead on as far as, so that's a creative muscle over a performance muscle. So
Right.
and I'm a little bit of an introvert, a lot of an introvert actually, to be quite honest. So it takes a lot of energy for me to do what we're doing right now, but it takes far more energy for me to do this, to talk about it, than to actually create a part for a song. That's like, I'm in my happy place.
Sure,
and I'm good.
sure.
It's like a chef, right?
Yeah, sure,
making
yeah.
a handcrafted meal.
Sure, got it.
That's really what I love. That's my comfort zone. But anyway, also all of this, it afforded me the opportunity early in my career in Nashville to start turning down tours, big tours, where my friends were going, "What are you doing? That's like the stupidest move I've ever seen anybody make in their career." And I was like, man, my dream is about to bust wide open. I'm not leaving right now. My career my studio career is about to unfold. I can just feel it in my soul, everything that I dream of. So yes, that could be very beneficial to me on some levels, and it'd be great. It's great music, but it's just the timing. Timing is not right for me. So anyway, that kind of was part of my decision making. And then once I got married, that definitely solidified
that aspect of it.
Yeah, that aspect. You mentioned family, and then once I had my first son, I've got two sons, and once I was a dad, that took over.
Sure.
I mean I would rather be a family man than a great drummer.
Yeah.
I would rather have that characteristic said about me than so that's very important to me. But so all of those things meant that I was basically long hours, right? What I do, especially 90s, 2000s, up to like 2015, wall to wall. I mean, I just had to learn how to say no. Otherwise, I would be in the studio constantly.
Right.
But what not being on tour for 3 or 4 weeks at a time afforded me was to be at the baseball games, or to be at the youth camp out with my boy, and teach him how to make a campfire, which I
s'mores.
Yeah, and just the list goes on about all that kind of.
Plus you have to look at it. You go now. Your studio's attached to your house where you do a lot of your work.
Yeah.
Or at that point you're going downtown to Nashville and you're coming home. You're on the road and you're doing a great job, but the star, who is the star, That's who's bringing the people in the seats.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
star.
Absolutely, yeah.
Has a new girlfriend and their brother's a drummer, and all of a sudden you're out of a job.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and with a baby.
Well, yeah,
and a house.
Yeah,
and,
you know.
So there's a whole lot in making that decision.
Yeah, and music. I mean, the music business is not exactly the most, you know. It's a crapshoot. Whichever pathway you choose, it's good. You're gonna meet your challenges along the way. You know?
And the music business is not always about the music. It's about the business.
Yeah, I'm not so much in the business. I mean, it is my business, but the actual business side of it.
Brutal.
I'm not so attached to that. I'm way more of just a musician.
Yeah.
You know, and I can enter into that and then exit it. You know, in a way. You know, I mean, it is my business in a sense. So I'm being a bit contradictory. But as far as like
people don't understand that there's two businesses going on.
Yeah, yeah. The office part of the music business, the A&R guys, the record label people, I don't know who they are, you know, other than just, you know, when I'm working on Dierks Bentley record, I meet the president of Capitol Records or whatever, you know, it's just in passing.
Yeah.
I don't really have a musical relationship with them. They're on a different. It's almost. You're exactly right. It's almost like there's two different businesses going on. Yeah. So you're right. So anyway, all that, you know, has given me, wow, what a
life of enjoyment.
What a gift. I just have such a space in my soul of gratitude for all of it.
Okay, so what we're going to do right now is take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back and talk about some of those special people projects that you've worked on with folks that some of our audience might know who they are as well.
Sure.
We'll be right back after these messages.
For many senior citizens, life looks like this. But it doesn't have to. When you make your home at Parkview Senior Living, life after retirement takes on a whole new meaning. Daily exercise options, fun outings, happy hour, game nights, movies and popcorn, arts and crafts, enjoying friends over chef-prepared meals. Parkview Senior Living, where you're always home, but you're never home alone.
Here in Tullahoma, we're very fortunate to have Builders Plumbing and Electric to serve all of our plumbing and electric needs.
Come see us while we have a short break at Builders Plumbing and Electric.
We're also fortunate to have Builder Supply, where we can get all the lumber to do any project we have around the house.
Come see us at Builder Supply.
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
We were talking about, as we left, some of the folks that you've worked with, not necessarily. I'll tell you what, first time I saw Steve on stage as an adult was in Nashville, because we heard he was going to be up there playing on stage with Michael W. Smith.
Yeah.
And that, I forget, there was a Christian band that played open before y'all were there.
Probably DC Talk.
DC Talk.
Yeah.
And then you were there, and there was another young man from Tullahoma, came in out of California, who was a trumpet player. Mm-hmm. Mike Haynes?
Mike Haynes.
Mike Haynes played.
Who was my best man in my wedding. We're great friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're in Nashville, at this huge auditorium. Your mom and your dad and your sisters and Fran and Candy and all of us, Bob and Dot probably as well. We were all there.
Such a proud moment for me.
We were
Such
all
a proud
there,
moment.
and I look up on stage, and here is this guy right here, and sitting in a sea of drums.
Oh yeah, it was a huge drum set.
There is no, you didn't have enough boxes probably except at Christmas time to make that set of drums.
Yeah.
And there's Steve up there playing, and I'm going, you know, this guy is at the top of the mark right here. I think Prince's sound crew was there, and Michael Jackson's light crew, and I mean,
it was top notch.
So, give us a few more, and we, you know, like we say, it's not about the names that you call, because they wouldn't be anything without the guys playing underneath them. Some of the folks that you've had an opportunity to either perform with or work on their projects, because I know now it's more working on their projects.
Yeah, right. Well, so you mentioned Michael W. Smith. You know, that was early on. That was a tour that I did in 1992, 93, and that was right during the time period where I was letting tours, the live thing go. But what an opportunity. And it was at the kind of the peak of his, you know, he had gotten his start in Christian music, and then we call it crossed over.
Right.
Crossed over to he had a couple of pop hits that hit the top 10 in pop music, you know. So he was doing this huge arena tour. So we were following, you know, Bon Jovi around, you know, and selling as many tickets in the same arenas, you know.
Right.
And I just use Bon Jovi as a random example, but, you know, we'd be playing the night after they would be in the same arena and, you know, playing for 20 or 25,000 people. And so that was a really taste of that for me, of that level of performing. So yeah, Michael W. And you know, I've performed a couple times with Amy too, and then I've performed live more recently from 2015 to 18 with Peter Cetera, which is the cool part about that is he was the original. He was the voice of Chicago, basically, and you know, I grew up as a kid driving around Tullahoma with Chicago's tape in my tape player, listening to his voice and those songs, dreaming that one day I could do. I didn't even know what I was dreaming about. I was just dreaming about music, you know, and how powerful it was to me. And then to find myself, I did find myself actually in the studio working on an album for him, and he liked me, and then he asked me to go play, and I said, I can't. It was at the peak of my studio career. My boys were young. Everything that I'd worked for was in place and growing. So I said no to Peter Cetera. It's my claim to fame. But you know, anyway, years later, my boys were grown. He kind of circled back around to me in 2015.
Right.
And said, you know, I'm doing about 30 gigs a year. Fly to every gig, you know, and it was the right time. I said yes. Right. So I got to play a lot of those songs that I was driving around in my Chevy van around this, you know, out in the country, dreaming of listening to his voice, and all of a sudden I was playing those songs with that voice. And you know, another example of that was I worked on a project with Bob Seger in Nashville, recording a record, and he had taken a break from the music business for like 10 years, and this was his he came back. And the reason he came back, well, part of the reason was that he had a son, and at that point the son was 10 years old, and the son was looking around and going, who is this Bob Seger that is all over the walls, the gold records? And I, you know, Like a Rock, the commercial, just like, who is that? Your dad. Show me who Bob Seger is. And Seger went, okay, I'm going to show you. He did another record, came to Nashville. I had Another artist that I've worked with a lot, Richard Marx. I had just finished working on Richard Marx's record. Same producer was producing Richard that was producing Seeger's new record. So he recommended me to Seeger, right there at Ocean Way in Nashville. So I got to, you know, all of a sudden, that was all great, and I was really, really excited, obviously, but, you know, who didn't? Who of us at our age, you know, didn't grow up with that in your ears?
Sure.
Well, it's different when it's coming out of your car speakers than when it's coming in your headphones and you're playing a recording with it. And that's when it was like a bomb dropped on my, you know, in my heart. Like, I can remember playing along, and he's singing. He's right in there. I'm like, when I was just focusing on the voice, I was like, oh my gosh, that's Bob Seger, the Bob Seger. You know what I mean?
And you're the stick man.
Yeah, and I'm there. So, you know, there's those moments. You know, Richard Marx, man, what a guy, man. He gave me so many opportunities with things he's produced, and several of his records. I love him. He's one of my favorite people I've ever worked for. But so there's that, you know, and I was a big part of Dierks Bentley's early records, like first five.
I like Dierks Bentley.
First five
You
records.
like Dierks Bentley?
Yeah,
He's a nice guy.
Oh, absolutely. And it was a really cool, you know, like I've already explained earlier, you know, I'm kind of eclectic in my taste and in my musicality. And he was coming from, you know, I can remember him walking into Ocean Way with this big, you know, like a big cardboard cutout of U2. Like they had a new record out, and it was the band, like it was a display that you'd see in a record store, like life size of the band, you know. He set it down in front of us, and then he had a picture of, like, I forget, probably like, you know, I don't know.
The Little Rascals.
Like bluegrass.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Mountain music.
Yeah.
So he was like, I want this meets this. And I said, I'm at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little bit rock and roll.
You go over to your hat tree.
Yeah, absolutely. Boom, 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 boom.
Mesh those two, put them on, I'm ready.
Because I'm real in tune, you know, I love you too. Yeah. I'm real in tune with rock. I love rock. And then I have a reverence for the art of bluegrass, and I love, and I grew up in Tullahoma, man. Country music was all around my ears growing up. You know, it's a part of my musical DNA. So, and that's what we did over the course of I forget if it was 4 or 5 records with Dierks, but we kind of, he used the same band, same producer, same room, same engineer, everything over the course of those records. And if you were to analyze those 4 records and the evolution of the sound and the way the music evolved on those first 4 records, you'll see what I'm talking about. Right. It was like we were his band for those moments, you know. And so that was a real special thing to be a part of, where you feel like you're not just a hired gun, but you're actually contributing a lot to the actual essence of the music and the actual. Does that make sense?
Well, well, and what the thing about it is, his hired guns that go out on the road with him have to learn how to do what you gave them to do.
To a certain extent, yes. And then they can do their own it just depends on what artist you're with. Some artists, they want it to be exactly like the record, and some artists will say, kind of take that and use that as your launching point, right? And then kind of do you. But I need it to be similar. But I want you to your voice in there too. So I love that aspect of it, because you don't handcuff the drummer by saying you have to note for note play that stuff, because that stuff was just that's my voice. Sure. That's my musical artistic voice that's on those records, right? And the cool thing about Dierks was his first single. It was the producer's first big time production. Dierks' first record, the first song that they put out, What Was I Thinking, is the name of the song, went #1.
Yeah.
And it was just like, we did, you know, I say we, and yes, I mean we. I mean, it's him and mostly him, but You know, I got a piece of that. You know, I got a piece of it, and I'm proud of it.
And it was the whole thing with him. He was a redheaded. I guess he's redheaded. Looks redheaded to me.
Kind of red blonde.
Curly hair, different looking dude. Not a belt buckle guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess the women probably just fell completely in love with him immediately.
Yeah.
You know, so and you're part of that. You're part of that, man.
Yeah. And so there's that. You know, I've worked with Faith and Tim and Big and Rich and you know, I've worked on some stuff with Alison Krauss. I've worked on, you know, a lot of the bluegrass people that you wouldn't typically think there would be drums in the room. But you know, I found a way with my hands and brushes to fit into the room and to make it not to make it intrusive, but supportive.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ann Baldwin.
Yeah.
Back to that.
All right.
But yeah, so there's those names. You know, Rita Coolidge. You know, Art Garfunkel. I recorded with Art Garfunkel. Played on about half of one of his records. You know, tons of Christian music, you know, and one of my favorite artists, two of my favorite artists I've ever recorded with that you guys out there might not know about is a Christian artist named Sarah Groves.
I know.
And I've played on maybe 7 records with her. Top 5 musical artists that I've had the honor of working with. There's another guy that's even not as well known at all, named Anthony Skinner, who he's actually the guy that played at my father's funeral. I don't know if you remember him or not. But anyway, so there's lots of people that aren't super gigantic, huge, but then I've worked with super gigantic artists and a lot of South American. Like, there's more music bought and sold in South America than here by a long shot. There's this one pretty famous guy named Cheyenne that I worked on a record for, and I didn't even know, I mean, you know, just to be honest, I wasn't aware of how iconic of an artist he was in that world. So I've had the opportunity to work for artists all over the world, and in tons of different genres and atmospheres and contexts. So yes, I'm not going to go on any more about that because, you know, you get the point. Yeah. And how lucky am I? How
lucky am I?
How lucky am I that I, you know, have been able to, the seed that was planted and germinated on this sacred ground for me of Tullahoma, that, you know, has been a thread and it never went away from me. And I kept, I'm one of the lucky ones that I have lived the dream, and I don't mean to sound like a Disney episode or anything, but I have. I'm currently and still, but it could all end now, and I would be content and satisfied.
Very good.
With whatever level of success or whatever I've been able to do. It could all end now, and I wouldn't quit playing music.
No.
Because I can't.
No, you can't. I
can't quit playing it because it's
writers got to write, musicians got to play.
Yeah. So how lucky am I that it's been a mainstay, you know, in my journey, in my life story. I never had to get a real job. But I did work at Hardee's here for 3. Let me tell you a story about the first time I heard myself on the radio. You want to know where it was?
Where was it?
You want to know
Hardee's?
It was in Tullahoma. Not JIG, but BGY. Boogie Radio. You know what my first job was?
No.
Janitor at WJIG.
All right, Ben's Jordan.
And I went in there with my buddy, who said, I want you to come help me be a janitor on Monday and Wednesday nights or whatever. And I went and did it. That was my first real job. Funny enough, a family friend and kind of a hippie dude, Steve Woodruff, he was in and out of Tullahoma for years when we were young. And but he was a great singer-songwriter and musician.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he was on staff there at WJIG as kind of like staff writer or something, and they asked him to write a jingle. Do you remember Boogie license plates?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, that was like, well, there was a recording studio in WJI in WBGY, that old building, right? So. I'm so glad I'm telling this story because it's so important. Steve wrote this jingle, like a 30-second jingle to go on, not even just for us here in Tullahoma, WBGY, whatever, and recorded it. And dude, I was the stuff.
Oh, of course.
When I was driving between Sonic and the mall over and over again on Friday night, when that commercial would come on, and I'd be in there in my car with my girlfriend or my buddies or whatever, volume knob went boom.
There I
That's
am.
me, man. That's me on the radio. That feeling, I still carry that feeling, and that sense of just joy. It's just joy, man.
It's music.
Yeah, and so that was the first time I ever heard myself on the radio. And the other players on that, this is important to me too, as far as my Tullahoma story, is that the other players on that were my friend Freddie Fox and the bass player named Charlie Hickerson. Everybody knows Charlie around here, right?
Yeah.
He was the bass player. Freddie, and they were my jam band. They were my garage band, those two guys. So we either did it in my living room, we either jammed on Friday and Saturday nights in my living room or Charlie's garage. And the cool thing about us is we weren't a cover band. Our goal wasn't really to go play at Daddy Billy's or whatever.
Right.
We were making stuff up. We were just jamming and just making all these like songs.
Yeah, sure.
But those two guys, they're heroes. They're Tullahoma heroes to me. But they were on that recording, that first recording. Freddie's gone on. He's lived in California for a long time, and he's married to Evelyn Champagne King, who, what was the song? She was on a big disco hit when she was like 17 years old. I mean, huge. I'm embarrassed that I can't think of the name of the song.
That's okay.
It's a one-word name. But anyway, so yeah. Tullahoma's sacred ground for me, man.
All right, we're going to take one last quick commercial and come back and close up.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ringo. Here at Parkview Senior Living, they're human friendly. That's why I love it here, and so does my senior human. When they want a bite, they get chef-prepared meals, and so do I. Movies in the theater, day trips, walks on the trail, and other senior humans to play with. The grass and the grounds are exquisite. It's everything my human needs to be healthy and active. Parkview. Parkview Senior Living. For your dog's best friend, you.
Serving you as a local firefighter.
Proudly served our country and the United States Air Force.
Serving Tullahoma.
Helping our kids.
Hi, I'm Terry Stroop. Your comfort is our service. We'd like to thank Tullahoma for the privilege of serving your heating and cooling needs.
All right, folks, we're back, and we've spent today with my friend Steve Brewster from Franklin, Nashville, and the world.
And Tullahoma.
And Tullahoma. Yeah. And one thing I want to say is P.T. Barnum wrote a quote, and it said, "The noblest thing a man can do is make another man smile." And you, my friend, I consider a member of a nobility, and you've made me smile today, my friend.
Thank you.
And I certainly do appreciate you coming, being here. And I know these folks out here who didn't have a clue who Stevie Brewster is, they know now, and they'll be listening.
Well,
the foundation is right here, folks. The Brew Beat.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome. I'm honored to be here. It's truly, truly honored.
We'll be back next time.
For information regarding It's a Matter of Music's catalog and songs written by John Gray, contact John at 931-581-5238 or John Gray at pheadtv.com.